The Joe Rogan Experience.
This congressman, is that who it is?
Yeah.
Jamie pointed this out, that there's a congressman and he released a series of tweets, and the first letter of all these tweets, if you put them all together, it says Epstein didn't kill himself or did not kill himself. Is that what it is?
Yeah, I think it's didn't. He did. I'll pull it up.
Yeah, how do you do the apostrophe?
Yeah.
So,
You should have gone with did not.
Starting here with that evidence of a link. And
Rep
there's the
Paul Gosser. What are the odds that this guy did this accidentally? Really small, right?
Yeah, that's kind of like one of those monkeys typing Shakespeare things.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't think it could work.
And the thing
accidentally.
is, he did it backwards, right? So
Right,
you
see.
didn't see what the puzzle was until the last tweet. Because the
caught
last
that?
tweet is an E.
I got a tweet from someone about 35 minutes ago that I don't know if there's a bunch of people online paying attention to it or what, but someone alerted me and a few other people of it.
What is he? Does he have an image of that crazy mask? Is that in his shit too? Okay, he's
Yeah,
a
that
weirdo.
might be the H of.
He's got the-
That's that was November 1st.
the V mask.
Yes.
Yeah.
What is that mask again? What is
V
that
for
representative-
Vendetta.
What was
Yeah,
it
it's-
representative of? It was something.
It's the Guy Fawkes mask.
Yes, that's right. That's
Yeah.
right. Yeah. So this guy is he's thinking along alternative lines of thought, but that is really an interesting way of saying it.
Alphabetry, that's called.
Yeah, just making a bunch of tweets. Don't ever address it. Just leave it there. Walk
Just leave
away.
it there. Yeah, Lewis Carroll was famous for that.
Was he?
Yeah, that was one of he did a lot of sort of tricks with words. Did you read the book Gödel Bach?
No.
Yeah, there's a whole bunch of stuff in there about people who put puzzles in text. You know, it's kind of a thing that people did, I guess, back more in the 18th century and before.
Well,
Yeah.
this Epstein case is probably the most blatant example of a public murder of a crucial witness I've ever seen in my entire life, or anybody's ever seen. And the minimal amount of outrage about this, the minimal amount of cover. It's fucking fascinating.
I mean, what's amazing to me, just as somebody who works in the media, is that this was shaping up to be the biggest news story in history.
Yes.
And the instant he died, or was died, or however you want to call it,
Yeah.
the story just fell off the face of the earth.
Yes.
It's like nobody's doing anything about it. And I don't 100% understand that. I mean, I get it why that's happening, but it's just amazing. to
Well,
watch.
when the woman from ABC, what was her name? Amy that lady, the one who
Robach,
yeah.
who had the frustrated moment that she called it, a frustrating private moment,
Right.
when she was talking about having the scoop and having that story and them squashing it.
Right.
Like this is all stuff that everybody used to think was conspiracy. Everybody's think this was stoner talk. This was, you know what I mean? Like this is stuff where people just are delusional. They believe all kinds of wacky conspiracies.
Sure.
But the reality is much less complicated. Well, this is not possible. This is one of those things that's so obvious. It's so in everyone's face.
Well, there's a couple of things going on because there are many different ways this can play out. I mean, you could have a news director who just sort of instinctively decides, well, we can't do that story because I might want to have Will and Kate on later, or I might want to have this politician on later. And it's not like anybody tells them necessarily that we can't do this, but
They just decide it's too hot.
if you grow up in this system and you've been in the business for a long time, you have all these things that are drilled into you at almost like the cellular level about what you can and cannot get into. And I think there were some explicit things that happened with Epstein too. I mean, there were a lot of news agencies that killed stories about him that, and we're hearing about some of them, Vanity Fair, this thing, so yeah, it's bad.
It's terrible.
Yeah. Yeah.
When I found out that Clinton flew no less than 26 times on a plane with Epstein, I was like, dude, I haven't flown that many times with my mom. And how
Right.
long did he know Epstein?
Yeah, I don't know. But I mean, to have that many flights, to have the Secret Service people involved, I mean, that's incredibly bold.
What was he doing? With just girls? Is Clinton that much of a hound that he would go that deep into the well that many times, 26 times?
Well, that's the thing about the Epstein story that makes no sense to me. Like, I thought that the percentage of people who were out and out, like perverts who had a serious problem, like with pedophilia or whatever, it was pretty small,
Yeah.
But they had a lot of people coming in and out of this compound, and it just seems like it's a very strange story. What were they really up to? I have no idea. And was it all a blackmail scheme? It's just so strange.
Well, it seems like the pedophilia aspect of it might be directly connected to Epstein himself. Like he might be the one that has a problem with girls that are like 16, and he likes them very young, or he did like them. But with the other guys, it could just be girls.
Could be, yeah.
I mean, that's why it's so crazy. Like, how could it be that these? But maybe it's not.
But they knew who he was.
Yeah, but they probably didn't know the extent of it.
Probably not. Yeah, up until a point.
Up until he was arrested.
Right.
And then they're like, oh. But then that's when everybody backed off of him, right?
Yes. Yeah. I mean, I'm not 100%.
either.
Yeah, I haven't covered this story in depth. I only really got into it a little bit.
We need you. We need you on this one. You're the guy.
This is a tough one. I mean,
Yeah.
because it mixes a lot of things that are very tough to cover.
Yes.
The intelligence world is very tough to cover. It's hard to get stories out of there that they don't want you to have.
Yeah.
And this is like the mother of all stories, in terms of that. And they're just little breadcrumbs here and there. That whole thing about Acosta, the Vanity Fair quote from him is that when he said that when he looked at the case, that he didn't do it because I was told he belonged to intelligence.
Yes.
What does that mean?
Right.
Whose intelligence? You know what I mean?
Right.
Like what agency? Well, what for? You know?
Right.
And then you pair that with things like, I have friends on Wall Street who tell me I've never heard a single instance of this guy actually having a trade.
Right.
So what was his hedge fund doing? I mean, if you think about it, a hedge fund's a perfect way to do blackmail,
Right.
because you can just have people putting money in and out all the time, and it would look like investment.
Yeah.
So very strange story.
Well,
Very
Eric
strange.
Weinstein had a conversation with him. Eric Weinstein was with Peter Thiel Capital.
Right. Yeah.
He's like, this guy doesn't know what the fuck he's talking about.
Oh yeah,
He's like, he's
financially.
a fake. Yeah, he's like, he's an actor.
Right.
Like, this is nonsense.
Right.
That was his
stand-in.
initial, almost instantaneous response.
Yeah, and what real clients did he ever have? What did he trade in? What?
How's he got $1 billion or whatever he had?
Yeah, no, it's
half a billion
under
whatever he was.
management. Yeah, that's ridiculous.
Why did the guy who owns Victoria's Secrets give him a $70 million home
Right.
in New York City? Like, what?
I mean, these are all things that would have been really interesting to get into,
If he didn't, try to kill himself
If the
twice.
suicide didn't happen to him, like in The Wire.
Poor
right?
fella.
Yeah.
It's just
Crazy.
so unfortunate.
Yeah.
So unfortunate that the cameras died. So unfortunately, he sustained an injury that you usually only get through strangulation.
Right.
When
Yeah.
someone murders you.
He fell on the ground and accidentally broke his hyoid bone.
Yeah.
Happens all the time.
Whatever.
Right? Yeah.
No big deal.
I mean, it's so bizarre. I can't stand conspiracy theories. I'm one of these people who doesn't like reading, but I can't make this story work in a way that isn't, conspiratorial in some
Well,
way.
that's the thing. It's like it gets to a point where you're like, okay. Even Michael Shermer, who runs Skeptic Magazine, was like, wait a minute, the cameras were not working?
Yeah. I mean, it's
Like,
such
okay,
a bad
well,
excuse.
this seems like a conspiracy. Fucking when Michael Shermer says,
Right.
that guy doesn't believe in anything.
Right.
I mean, he's down the line on virtually every single thing that's ever happened. He doesn't believe in any conspiracies.
Well, what's the innocent explanation for any
There's
of this?
none. It doesn't make any sense.
You can't spin it in any way to make it not a crazy conspiracy
Especially
theory.
when the brother hires a doctor to do an autopsy. And
Oh,
the
yeah.
doctor says, like, this guy
Baden.
was fucking murdered.
Right.
Yeah, Michael Baden, the famous guy from the HBO autopsy show.
Right. Yep. Absolutely. Craziness. Complete craziness. And it's an example of the Epstein story is interesting because it's about villains on both sides of the aisle, right?
Yeah.
This is a classic. This is something I've written about before. Is that the press does not like to do stories where the problem is bipartisan.
Yeah.
Right. So when you have an institutional problem, when Democrats and Republicans both share responsibility for it, when or if it's an institution that kind of exists in perpetuity, no matter what the administration is, we don't really like to do those stories. If Fox likes to do stories about Democrats, MSNBC likes to do stories about Republicans, but the thing that's kind of all over the place, they don't like to do that story. Epstein is, he's friends with Trump and with Clinton. I mean,
Yeah.
It looks like he has more friends on the Clinton side, but still. And I think this is one of the reasons why this story doesn't have a lot of traction in the media, because neither side really likes the idea of going too deeply on it. Feels
Right.
like to me.
Well, but the blatant aspect of it. The closest that we have to that is the absolute murder, the Jamal Khashoggi murder. That's the closest thing we have to, where it's absolute murder.
Right.
This one, but it's also so insanely blatant. But now you have foreign actors that are involved in it, and they all disperse, and then there's left with this confusion of to who's responsible for it.
Well, Saudi Arabia, that's another example where you can't really say it's, one side of the. Both parties have been incredibly complicit in their cooperation with
Yeah.
the Saudi regime and in the massacres that are going on in Yemen. It's a classic example of what Noam Chomsky used to talk about with worthy and unworthy victims, right? Like if the Soviet communists did it, that was bad, but if death squads in El Salvador killed a priest or a Catholic priest, then that was something we didn't write about because they were our client state. Yemen is a story we don't write about. Syria is a story we do write about, but they're really equivalent stories. And but you're absolutely right. The Khashoggi thing, I don't think either party or either side's media really wants to get into that all that deeply.
Hello everyone, I am Smooch Panda, and this is Old Blue Eyes herself, Frank Sinatra. If you enjoyed the content, I appreciate you watching it. Hit that subscribe button if you want more of it. Go ahead and hit the bell if you want to know when it comes out. Appreciate you stopping in, and MAGA baby, Trump 2020, that's all that matters.